Welcome to Humans for Humanity. Before this was a podcast, it was a puzzle in my head, one I couldn't quite explain, but couldn't stop trying to solve. Back in 2022, I turned on a camera and began with what I had, a feeling, a blueprint, and a knowing that our pain is not random. I started with true crime cases, not to sensationalize tragedy, but because I needed a place where the energy was undeniable, where the pattern underneath the facts could be felt, not just understood. It was my way of building a bridge between the intuitive truth and lived experience. What I didn't fully realize then was that I was laying the foundation for this. And along the way, I created tools to help navigate that passage more consciously. I designed sacred woundings and sacred shadows to name and honor the places that we break and to show the medicine rising through the cracks. I created the Afterlife Outbox as a bridge between the living and the dead, because some stories keep speaking even after the body is gone. I created the Whispers of the Unsolved and the Missing Variables to bring voice to the silenced and to help us listen differently to the unresolved. These decks aren't just cards, they're companions, anchors, mirrors, tools that I needed in order to complete the proving of the blueprint by showing it unfold live. This podcast is how I live the blueprint out loud, by listening, by witnessing, by letting the human story lead and watching how the soul reveals itself in real time. This is everything that I hoped to create when I first began, and it's only the beginning. My wish is that this space becomes a mirror, a map, and medicine. That by hearing others, you remember yourself, and that together we find meaning in what once broke us and become something more whole than we were before. And now I would like to welcome a very special guest, my dear friend, Bethany. She is a stay-at-home mama, recovering addict, tarot and oracle reader, and enthusiast, storm walker, truth teller, and heart healer. She was born and raised in Kentucky. This is the reckoning of sacred silence. Some reckonings don't come with thunder. They come in silence, not the kind that confronts, but kind that calls every buried ache to the surface. The kind that asks a million questions at once and answers them all with a mirror. Bethany knows that silence. She met herself in it. In the stillness of where regret wrestled with revelation, where the ache of everything lost slowly turned sacred, not because the pain disappeared, but because it finally spoke. This is not a story tied in a bow. This is a story that bled first, that clawed its way back from addiction, from fear, from the brutal betrayal of being misunderstood by the very people she was once expected to trust. Bethany joins us today not with blame, but with brave, not to sugarcoat, but to speak the kind of truth that sets you free, even if it shakes the room. This is her reckoning, not just to survive the storm, but to help others rise from it too. And today she's not hiding, not from the ghost, the gaslighting, or the grip of shame. Because when you find yourself in the wreckage and God says, speak, you do. Even if the old shadows stir, even if speaking it cracks something open, because this isn't about fear anymore. It's about freedom. And when a woman claims her voice after being silenced, that's not just healing, that's a resurrection. Humans for Humanity is more than a podcast. It's a living experiment, a spiritual archive, a collective echo of what it means to walk the obstacle course of embodiment and come out more whole than we began. Each episode is guided by spirit and shaped by tarot. I don't write questions in advance. I pull cards and follow the energy. Because I believe the soul already knows what wants to be spoken. It just needs permission to speak. Behind this project is something bigger. I channeled a map called the Blueprint. It's my theory of consciousness. It says that we don't just show up on Earth, we drop in with purpose. And as we move through life, we traverse an invisible structure made of energetic gateways, each linked to a chakra, each initiating us into a deeper version of truth, power, and love. Every human story holds clues. When someone speaks about betrayal, grief, purpose, survival, or awakening, I listen for the frequency underneath of the facts. The blueprint helps me track where their soul is in the arc of return, what chakra they're wrestling with, what lesson they came here to embody. This podcast helps me prove the blueprint by living it in real time. By letting people tell the truth of what they've been through and noticing the patterns that emerge. Because when we zoom out, we see your story isn't separate from mine. And our pain isn't random, it's part of the passage. Humans for Humanity is the collective field where those pieces come together, where what once broke us becomes what makes us medicine. It's a sacred conversation between one voice and the many, one soul and the system that we're all moving through. And if we keep listening, we just might remember why we came. What can you tell us about a moment in your life when you realized that love was the only answer that was going to unlock a door that felt closed?
I would say that the clarity came whenever I knew that I had to become the best version of me so I could be the best version of me for anybody else that comes into my life. I did that through self-love and healing and creating a safe space for myself to heal.
What can you tell us about a time in your life where you realized that the strategy that you were employing was causing you to not see the lesson in what felt like a punishment? So I need to shift perspective, or I need to shift strategy because I can't change the situation. So I need to change the way that I'm approaching the situation. And you realize that the answer lied in taking back your power.
I think something that I realized is the more that you push on a closed door, the more that door is not going to open. If a door is meant to be open, it'll open with ease. And I think pushing and pushing and pushing kind of pushes that energy further away from us, and kind of just sitting and being and accepting everything as it is. A surrender.
What can you tell us about a scar left from a loss of something valuable? And when the loss of this valuable, when that loss happened, it made you question how much you knew about yourself. What can you tell us about the moments when you questioned how much you knew about yourself, and how did you bring yourself back to finding yourself again?
The saying, wherever you go, there you are also, is what's coming to my awareness. I ran and ran and ran and ran and ran from facing that pain of that loss. And eventually that pain will catch up to you. It will find you and you will have to face it. And when you face it head on, you'll have to face it eventually. And then whenever you face it, it's probably the most excruciating pain in the world, because it'll make you feel like you get it back and then you'll lose it again. So you have to face yourself through that pain, and you realize you never even knew who you were. You had no idea who you were. You were everything that you thought other people needed you to be. You shaped and you molded yourself into what it was that you thought they needed you to be, never even knowing who the heck you are.
On the path to trying to find yourself again, you have this "who am I even trying to find" moment. Like,
Yes, I don't even know who I am. So it's about not even going back to who I was, because it's about creating who I want to be. And you can't do that unless you're in a place of peace, unless your surroundings give you that, okay, it's safe enough to try to figure it out. You're not constantly operating out of survival mode.
it's like you realize that the whole time it was actually this blank piece of paper and you were just letting other people fill it. And then once you get far enough away from them, you're like, "Oh no, like now I have the pen. Like, what do I want to write here? I don't even know. Like, I don't even know." And then you go on this journey of like, "Oh no, now it's like I have to be vulnerable because there's nothing here. I have to fill it in. I have to figure it out." It's scary.
Yeah.
How would you describe that shadow? That the shadow that you embodied at that time, how would you describe the feeling of that shadow?
She is somebody that needs people to see her, like her. There's like a stamp of approval. So She's mean to the version of me now, thinking that, and she like antagonizes me and is like, you need to do this or do that in order to be accepted. But I wasn't happy doing those things. So, something that has always stuck in my mind that you have said yourself, I can no longer abandon myself for others. And she thinks that that's what we have to do to keep people around.
That was safety before.
Yeah.
That was the only control that because you can't control other people, but you can control how hard of a time other people are giving you to some degree if you kind of play
Yes.
along with what they want. So it's
Yes.
hard
Yes.
to get out of that survival mode. It's hard
Yes.
to like be like, okay, no, and I get that too. Like the mask, like the mask of like approval that like I'm being myself to the degree which I feel like you can tolerate. When that starts to slip, it's scary. It's like almost like you feel like you're walking around naked and you're like, "Oh no, like
Yes.
where are the leaves? Like I need to cover. Like I can't." It's scary. Uh,
Yes. Yes. Making sure that I'm digestible.
the kept silence. Truth swallowed to keep the peace. This wound forms when you learn that speaking up causes disruption. So you bite your tongue to maintain harmony. Over time, silence becomes a survival tactic, one that protects others but costs you connection to yourself. It can leave you feeling invisible, resentful, and unsure whether your voice is safe or welcome. What can you tell us about a time when community played a role in making you feel like you needed others, which cost you the ability to be able to rely on yourself because they knew how to trigger an inner child abandonment wound?
I thought that, community is supposed to feel warm and welcoming and inviting and almost like a family feeling, but you can be there and not feel that way. You can absolutely feel or like be around people that you are considering family or community or a sense of belonging, but the energy will speak completely different. You still continue to feel like this outsider or like you're not accepted or you're not you don't have a stamp of approval. So you end up just running. You just run until you can try to find that anywhere from anyone.
And that's how it triggers that abandonment wound because you're like, "Oh no, like
Yeah.
if I don't show them what they want, I'm just gonna be abandoned again." So much on that, you forget to like depend on yourself. That's how you like lose it. What can you tell us about how it impacted you to carry a burden that was not yours? There was a time in your life when you could not let your mind rest, but the burdens were not yours. You were carrying burdens of everyone else, and it felt like you almost couldn't utilize your own intelligence or your own brain processing because it was full of trying to unpack and fix everything for everyone else. What can you tell us about either that time or what you learned from that?
I realized that it was never mine to hold. It was projected onto me. I absorbed it as if it was my own. And when I absorbed it as if it was my own, it was not mine. So how am I supposed to hold something that was never, mine? So I completely avoided feeling it. It was just too much. It was too much to bear. So I chose a path of doing whatever I needed to by any means necessary to not have to feel that, to not have to process that, to not have to think about that. It was just too much.
I think sometimes it's like so much at once that even if you have the tools, you're like, I don't like, I can fix this one corner, but like then there's the whole rest of the room and it just feels too overwhelming that to numb, it feels like the only way to survive. Like when you feel like that weight is going to crush you. And especially because when it's other people's burdens, you're like, I need to be okay for them because what if I'm not carrying this for them? What if I can't carry it? So it almost
Yes,
feels like I need to do what I need to do to survive because if I can't carry this burden, you can't either. That's why I'm carrying it in the first place.
yes, exactly.
This is
And they're not
chat.
holding it either. So
Like that analogy of like we're in the same boat. They might have started putting some water in there, but if you go ahead and poke a hole, we're both going to sink.
that's a perfect analogy. Yes.
How would you describe that feeling? How would you describe the feeling of that shadow?
Drowning, drowning. and not even having the solution of how to do. I don't have a bucket. I don't have a pail. I don't even have anything to be able to get this water out. So it's just like you're watching it happen, knowing that it's happening, completely seeing it in real time, but there's nothing you can do. So it's literally drowning, and you kind of just accept your fate. But in the back of my mind, the whole time I knew that this wasn't it. I didn't know how we were going to get out of that boat, but I couldn't help the water coming in. I didn't feel like there was nothing I could do.
And you can try to like use your hands and get it out, but like
Yeah, but that's
the more water comes in, the faster it comes because then you're
yeah.
sinking.
Yes.
Like you just put yourself into this panic to like not really even be making progress because there's more
Yeah.
water than what you can scoop out. The wound of the masked child. Innocence hidden to protect the heart. This wound forms when softness, wonder, or vulnerability is met with harm or rejection. To stay safe, the inner child, which is kind of how we started this question, how did it trigger the inner child, learns to hide behind strength, silence, or performance, and leave you disconnected from joy, mistrustful of tenderness, and unsure how to let your true self be seen because you've had to be the one that is masked child is like not allowing to be unburdened. Like all the burdens are on you. You're supposed to be this like innocent of these burdens and they're all on you. And it makes you have to perform the role of like the one who's holding it all together until you
Yes.
can't.
Yes, 1,000%. There was a lot of feeling like I can't do something or I can't think this way already kind of ingrained into me. So yeah, 1,000%. Yeah.
Tell us
Okay.
about what made you not give up.
My person, my child, my first baby. I knew everything always just kept pulling me so that I could somehow, some way be that for him. Be a mom. Be a mom.
There's a lot of patterns that had to be broken. There's a lot of mindset shifts that needed to happen. There's a lot of healing that needed to be faced head on, even when it would have been so much easier to run in the opposite direction. There's a lot of sacrifice, right? So this is essentially you versus you.
Yes.
Describe that shadow that is simply a part of you that needed love and light, but at the same time, it's the part of you that was so hard to face that at times you just self-destruct it in order to avoid that part of you. So tell us about the facing of that particular shadow, what it felt like.
Regret, guilt, shame. But I also know that those were the things that like I felt at the time that I didn't have a choice. So I try to tell my regret, guilt, and shame, you were doing the best that you knew at the time with what you had, with the information that you had, the knowledge you had, the pain that you felt that you could not, you didn't know how to deal. It's a heaping amount of guilt.
Betrayed king, pain of misplaced trust in those you led. Would it be accurate to say that because of you knowing the purity of your intentions and you were trying to be okay, and the only way you knew to be okay was to numb, and there is this shadow, which literally, interestingly enough, I said you versus you here, so it's like the darkness and the light. When you were drowning and you had been helping everyone else for so long, this feeling of betrayal, this feeling is coming from everyone knew my intentions. Why did no one help me different?
Why did you watch me drown?
Why did you watch me drown?
Help me? I was
Right.
obviously not okay. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
This wound forms when those you supported or believed in turn away, betray, or abandon you. As a leader or caretaker, the betrayal cuts deep, challenging your sense of judgment, loyalty, and power. It can leave you guarded, disillusioned, or reluctant to lead again for fear of being hurt where you gave the most. I feel like for this, it's like a lot of just simply life continuing to show you what you could have become, but you overcome the shadows that would have made you become like those who hurt.
There was a point where I was like so bitter. My heart was hardened and I had to pray. I had to beg for that to be those, it was like scales lifted off of my heart because it was too much. It was too much. And that is the turning point where I figured out, wait a minute, how can one live with such a feeling in their soul, knowing that somebody's in this much pain? knowing that somebody's this hurt. How do they sleep at night? Because whenever I think about if I accidentally said something out the way to somebody, or maybe said something that I shouldn't have, I will go to sleep and my brain will not stop until I reach out to that person. My conscious, how is their conscience clear? Because that's what I couldn't live with myself. I couldn't even in that anger and that resentment, once I understood everything, I couldn't live with that.
And I think that that's kind of it too with this card. It's like you knew that there's people around you that knew that you weren't trying to hurt anyone. You were simply trying to numb to actually be okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is the only way I can be okay. And everyone can kind of see that. So I think that that's kind of where that comes from. And I think that the lesson that you learned from that is that sometimes we are our only advocate. Like, we're the only one who really knows what's going on inside. And sometimes other people will willingly not see that because it allows them to paint a narrative that they're more comfortable with to keep us
Yes.
in a little bubble of control. So
Yes.
sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves, especially when those who we trust are just refusing to do it.
Yeah, I can't spend a lifetime translating my soul, especially when you're not trying to hear me.
Tell us about one time when you did not get what you wanted, and that led you to start to plan and escape.
I think that there was a point in time where I realized that I had to do it for me. And when I chose that, that's when things started to move or flow for me. When I tell you that God gave me everything back, like times 10. When you find that happiness or peace within yourself, everything starts moving. And then that's whenever it's almost like if something happens, it's like you're given an anchor or a safeguard if something happens. And that thing will still happen and you'll still have to face your pain. You'll still have to feel it all. But it's different now because you know what you went through to get to where you were at, to where you're at now. You have this, well, I did that, so what can't I do?
And now you also have the tools and wisdom that you got from going through that. So you're going into battle a little bit more prepared. What can you tell us about your life after your rock bottom, associated with rebuilding from the ground up?
Okay, so the piece that I have now, there was this never ending thing. My brain just wanted to keep going and going and going and going and going. So I didn't have a choice but to create my foundation, my life into a place like a refuge or a sanctuary to, well, yeah, to protect me, but give me a place where I can be okay and not constantly have a door open where something can come in an unpredictable way and constantly trigger me back into flight or fight, back into flight or fight. I had to create a sanctuary to heal. And that's this life that I consider that I have now. You know, I have people in my life that care about me genuinely. I have been shown what true love, care, and concern is through friends, through my husband, through my family. So I can see a contrast of course I was, what I went through before. Of course that put me into survival mode. So sometimes you have to protect what you have worked so hard for, like this foundation, this it was very difficult. I had a lot of root chakra issues at the beginning, a lot of money wounds, a lot of self-worth, a lot of self-value. I didn't feel worthy enough to be able to protect myself, to be able to create that safe space for a long time. But then I kept pushing against that. And I was like, no, I've got to, because if I'm not okay, if I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of anybody. I can't. So this is, extremely important that I keep my life, my stability, my security in a place where that doesn't get disturbed. Like the front door is open, but you have to abide by the keeping it a sanctuary, a place of refuge, so that I don't have to go back into the root chakra.
Would you say that you feel like there's also some bit of like a gatekeeper at this door that kind of helps?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my dad.
You will find your strength in recognizing how much you've already overcome.
That's exactly what I said earlier.
There he is again, and there's you in Castle. Okay. As it pertains to something that you learned, overcame mindset-wise or 3D-wise from that root chakra.
the importance of everybody contributing, everybody working together, everybody communication is so important. Communication is so important. Oh my goodness. I think it's very important to ground in your truth so that you don't get swept away in somebody else's, should I say this? Delusion? Manipulation? Creating a place, a safe place so that I can take care of me the best, so I can take care of those that I love the best. So I'm a nurturer by nature. I love with my whole heart and soul. And as long as the foundation is stable, if the soil has the proper sunlight, the plant has the sunlight, the nutrients, and all the right conditions, I tend to thrive and I can take care of, I can do anything, you know, but if I'm planted in some soil where I can't take care of things properly, I fumble that pinnacle. I throw it on the floor because I'm like disembobulated, disbobulated.
You block the magic.
Yes, yes.
You've always been the one to take care of a lot of people, and I think that part of your story is meant to show people the difference between what happens when you're also taking care of yourself
Mhm.
versus when you're pouring literally everything out and leaving nothing for yourself.
Yes.
Because in the past situation, what led to that rock bottom, what led to that tower is you were doing then kind of in a way what you're doing now, taking care of everyone is who you are by nature. But the difference is
Yeah.
now, like you just said, you've created that safe space. You're not saying I sacrifice myself completely for everyone else. You're saying I have the wisdom to know that in order to care for everyone else, I need to take care. My cup needs to be full.
Yes.
Because I know from experience that in the past, if that cup's not full and I continue to try and dump out, it just leads to me having issues,
How can
not
I pour on empty? How can I pour on empty? And not in a way of like physically, but emotionally. I'm more impacted emotionally. I am drained and tired if my emotions take a hit way more than doing something physically, running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So
that with the good soil versus the bad soil. I think a lot of it is your cup wasn't full and you couldn't pour into the soil. So even if that would have been good soil, your cup was so empty, there was nothing to nourish the soil. Now you know that this soil remains healthy, at least
yeah,
in part, because my cup is full enough to nourish it, to pour into
continue to
it.
take care of it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like your story is it shows the difference between you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Can't do
Yeah.
everything at once. You need there needs to be a limit. There needs to be, okay, this is the point where like I need to refill my cup so that I have something to pour out for you. And I feel
Yeah.
like that lesson was difficult to learn. It's the one that kind of like set you free because you know you don't have to repeat those patterns anymore because you would never go back to being like, I'm just gonna leave myself empty because you know what happened.
Yes.
Memory fog in reverse, forgetting as a shield from pain.
Oh,
Because in the past, you would busybody yourself and not focus on the shadows, not focus on what am I trying to avoid by keeping myself so busy. So much
mhm.
that you would forget that that was even there. So now it's like, no, I see these parts of myself and I'm going to pour into those parts instead of drain them.
I love it.
Arises when the mind blurs what the heart cannot yet hold. Whether through trauma, overwhelm, or emotional shutdown, parts of your story go hazy to keep you safe. It can leave you feeling disconnected, unsure of your past, and afraid what might surface if you truly remember. I think that before pushing it down was a way of forgetting, whereas now you're
Yep.
like, nope, bring it on. I'll face it because I'm not gonna hide it and let it fester.
Yes, 1,000%.
Tell us about a battle that you've had, either with like a belief system or a mindset like system, and how you were following something that you felt like was what you had to do or what you were told to do. And you had to realize, okay, this doesn't quite work for me. I'm going to mold it into something that does.
The difference between unconditional love and conditional love, because unconditional love accepts you as you are. In conditional love, you have to do this or do that. And if you don't, there will be repercussions. I could not understand how that was love. I could not understand a belief system. That belief system felt like the entire world that I grew up in. It felt like the religion I grew up in. It felt like the people I aligned myself with.
That's a hard one to break too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
'Cause you don't get that instant, like, "Okay, I'm doing this, and then I get love." It's just like, "Okay, now I need to
Yes.
just wait and hope I get it." Like,
Yeah,
it's
or what
weird, it's
more
hard to
do I
break.
need to do, or how much more do I need to pour so that you can see that I'm worthy of pouring back?
Right. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good one. Yep.
Yeah.
Tell us about a time you were forced into surrender, and what that.
There was a point in this past, well, since I built my stability and security here, something, pain, like I said, still follows you. And there are times in your life where you don't have a choice. You cannot run from it. And if something happens or someone that you love dearly leaves and you can't do anything, you can yell or scream, you can do whatever you want. It's going to fall on deaf ears. And then if you have to face that pain, you face that pain regardless. Like, I didn't think that I needed to face it because what pain was there to be felt with the person that I love the most in my life? But whenever that's gone, it's gone and you don't have a choice and you can't run for it from it. You can't numb, you can't avoid it. You have to, because you have to be of a sane mind, or you have to be in a stable mind frame or place of being sober minded, because you got to take care of other things and other responsibilities. So you don't have a choice. It's time to face it now. And it's like the thing that initially caused all my pain that I ran from it to numb was the exact same thing that happened again. And I didn't have a choice to numb. So I had to feel it. And I understand why I ran, because it was excruciating. I don't wish it upon my worst enemy.
In which ways did these energies make you feel like you couldn't stop running?
I think it was me. I didn't want to grow up. I think it was not wanting to grow up. Responsibilities. I think responsibilities was a very big thing. So, like, we're talking about the future, making plans, looking ahead. That was a big thing. It was like I wanted to be stuck in Never Never Land.
Now, we share something in common about both being adopted, because I also have very similar feelings to that with, like, my rock bottom story. It was kind of the same, right? It's like this feeling of, like, this room that you're not ready to close yet, this door you're not ready to close yet, and I kind of feel like, ooh, in situations of, like, adoption or maybe not knowing a specific parent or however other people's situations are, it almost feels like part of your subconscious wants to keep a foot in this one room. It's like it wants to see if anyone's going to come back, is in part, at least in my case, what led to, like, my destruction for a bit, because I
Yeah.
could not for the life of me get myself to take my foot out of this room. Like, it was
Yeah.
like nailed to the floor. Like, it would not come
Yeah.
up. Like, I feel like that kind of is part of.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's just not a coincidence that my abandonment wound, okay, from our moms leaving, right? Well, why do we continue to fall madly in love with people or have people in our life that we love with our whole heart and our spirit, whether it's your mom, your dad, your child, your husband, they leave,
Mhm.
triggering that abandonment wound, forcing us to look at the why did my mom do this?
And it's almost like those situations happen because it's like, "Hey, your foot's still in that room." Like, you can't walk all
Yes.
the way into your future until you take your foot out of the door. I think that, like, that happens to get us to look down and realize, "Oh, this keeps happening because I need to move my foot. I need to keep running because I can't walk away from or I can't give up on."
I think it's right back what you said. What if they come back?
Mhm.
What if they come back?
And what if your foot's not in the door anymore and then the door is closed?
And then what? And then
It's like they could always open the door completely, but it gives up your control of having the door remain open and unlocked.
right, so if I stop trying to pry it open, are they gonna think that I don't care? When it gets exhausted, begging.
It's almost like you have to find this balance of figuring out a way to, like, put a sign on the door saying the door is still open, but I also need to take my foot out so I can be the best best me.
Mm.
Like, I need to be the one that comes for me. And I think
Yeah.
that with your story, that's a big difference is like, it's like last time you weren't able to face the version of yourself that had the foot in the door. This time you are. And I think that that makes all the difference is that willingness to see the parts of yourself that don't want to let go, that foot in the door.
Yeah, I'm able to pull it out because I've been standing here for way too long and I need this foot to walk around.
When you were running, how did other people make you feel like you couldn't stop running?
Judgment, judgment, not seeing that it was my pain, but instead I would receive condemnation. That condemnation was just still gonna not make me feel seen or heard or understood. Maybe that's more of what it is, misunderstood.
It's like you become the girl that runs, but then it's like, why are you always running? And then if you don't run, you're like, well, why stop running? It's like,
Yeah,
what do you want me
exactly.
to do? Which path? What do you want? What do you want from me? And that's how it gets back to like you get forced into that people pleaser. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I wasn't allowed to run. I'm not supposed to stop running, and I'm not supposed to run faster. So like,
What do I do?
what do you want?
Exactly.
What do you want from me?
Exactly.
How did you learn to let karma take care of what justice can't always take care of?
A relationship with God. Because when you build that trust with God, you don't worry. You don't put your hands in it. It's the literal God of the universe. So it's like I had to build this trust and I still wouldn't trust because I'd feel this like crippling anxiety or panic of like, I need to do something. What do I do? Tell me what to do. And it was just the answer constantly was like, just be still. If I'm God, you don't worry. You let me do it. And then it will be the time that is right and it won't be forced. It'll just happen with ease. And that's given me so much peace. So much peace.
Almost like because you are someone who will seek any solution. You're like, give me any solution. It's like you had forced into that type of surrender where it's like,
Yes.
okay, I have to trust because I literally I have
I
to. I
don't
have
have a
no other
choice.
reason.
Yeah.
What is a clue about your story that you feel could help other people?
My mess is my message.
You find yourself in how you put yourself together after breaking. So it's like you need that for that self-discovery to break these chains.
Yeah, there's a dharma. There's a dharma. There's a gratitude. When you resist it, it just gets worse. Like it just gets worse. The only way out is through is the truest thing. It hurts, it sucks, but I promise that you're going to have to face it eventually. You can run for your whole life, but once again, there wherever you go, there you are also, and it will catch up to you, and it might make you will look at it, and you will be forced to look at it, and if you don't look at it, it'll come back harder. There is your truth, my truth, and God's truth. If I was to put that in a quote.
Mhm. And I feel like the best combo is living yours with like the intention to see it from God's perspective. Let me try my best to see this from that higher perspective while living in alignment with my truth. Which brings me to this question. When you felt like you were furthest away from living the truth that you now live authentic, when you feel like you were at your furthest away point from who you are right now, what do you feel like was the almost like, you know, how like when a kid's a ghost, they put the sheet over them? What was that sheet? What was blocking you? What was that embodiment of a blockage?
Can I say like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can say this. I don't know if I can say like,
Yeah,
can I say
yeah,
drug?
yeah,
Yeah,
you can
okay.
drug. Yeah.
Drugs. Drugs.
What drugs is the blanket thing, right? What's that fabric feel like to have one?
Bliss, peace from constant chaos, constant loudness, constant never it just peace from pain, turmoil. It was the only relief. Yeah, quiet, quiet. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
The invisible one.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
Unseen, unchosen, unrecognized.
Let me just become invisible, punishing myself even too. It was like, I'll become invisible. I must be the terrible one you've convinced me that I am. So I'll show you, I'll hurt me, and I'll just be gone. And I wouldn't have to feel it.
It's like
Invisible.
you punished yourself by leaving yourself there, but hiding yourself in plain sight. Like it's
Yeah.
almost like you had to take yourself into I can only observe myself. I can't be I don't I can't be myself. I can't feel the feelings of myself. Others have convinced me that I'm not worthy of having these feelings of joy. So I'm going to find a way to listen to them and turn it off. This wound arises when your presence is overlooked, your voice unheard, or your value dismissed. You may blend into the background, not by choice, but by pattern. It can leave you feeling irrelevant, disconnected, or questioning whether you matter at all.
Yes.
The journey to take off this, what did you have to stop doing or stop telling yourself so that you could allow yourself to be patient enough to defend your progress, to take steps forward instead of forward then back, forward then back? What was like, this is what I need to stop doing or thinking besides the obvious?
That I could be, I mean, I could be the president of the United States to certain people, and I still wouldn't be good enough. I could be the president of the United States, but you still wouldn't see me. So I had to start to like myself. I had to stop putting those expectations of what it is that I think that you need me to be in order, I had to say, well, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How would I even like myself?
You had to see yourself before you felt comfortable to let other people see you again. And it goes back to like that blank slate. Like you're like, okay, in order to let them see me, I need to see me. But then you pull back the sheet and you're like, oh no, like I thought there was all this writing on there. I
Yeah.
thought everyone knew who I was and they told me and I wrote it all down, but now it's not there. And then you're like, oh, that wasn't true.
That wasn't even my narrative. That's what they
Right.
wrote. They had the pen.
Right. And then
Yeah.
you realize that all their writing was simply part of that sheet. And now you take off the sheet and you're like, oh no, I'm a blank page.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know how to fill it in because I've just been listening to what everyone else told me that I was. And then I've been acting accordingly. I hid myself because they told me that I needed to go away. You had to decide, this is who I want to show up as.
The fool is in itself the guy going through a spiritual awakening. So the one thing that I did have that I could like not get over was the supernatural experiences that I had prior to me going to numb, because it was just too much for me to handle. So that was something that I knew that I did have. That was an experience that I did have before the sheet, just a blip, but I knew that was real because it was so unreal. So that's where I started. I started remembering my spiritual awakening before, which was in 2012, but I didn't get sober until 6 years now, 6 years ago. But that is what I had to work with. And did I identify myself as somebody, who just went through a spiritual awakening? No, but I did know that that was something, and that was a reason why I was here. There's a reason why we're here. Why is nobody asking why we're here? And that's where I could kind of start. So it's funny that the full come out. And within that, there was life started happening for me. Life started happening for me. Almost, I just blink, and life started happening for me. Love started happening for me. Happiness started happening for me. Peace started happening for me. And that's also about a new beginning. So I got that new beginning. I didn't know what to expect, but in the back of my mind, I thought this is all going to fall apart, but it didn't. So there was a reflection of, well, wait a minute, maybe there's something here. Maybe all of that was for a reason. And it gave me okay, something's happening. This is something.
How would you describe that shadow? That shadow that once it was lifted, you were like, oh, I'm doing something with this.
No, so it feels like a worthiness, not being enough.
Misnamed soul, called things you never were. This wound arises when others define you through their projections, labels, or fears. You're misunderstood, mischaracterized, or cast in roles that distort your truth. It can leave you confused about who you are, constantly defending yourself, or hiding the parts of you that never felt safe to reveal. What can you tell us about clarity that you got about your purpose from a change in the current in your life?
What if I have something that could help someone else's freedom, but I had to access that for myself first. But I have that piece of knowledge that could also unlock somebody from into their own freedom.
So you never know what about your story could shift perspective for someone else.
Yes.
There was a time in your life where it felt like life had kept going for so long, but yours was kind of stuck in place, and there was this moment of like, "Am I going to just settle for staying disconnected from myself, or am I going to settle for staying of a feeling of lost?" What made you not give up in that moment and start to fight to find yourself again?
This was a supernatural experience. The best thing I can describe it, some people call it like walk-in spirits, but I noticed a shift when I went from co-pilot to pilot. And then when that happened, it was like all of a sudden, like, some people call it like scales being lifted off their eyes. I was on a warp path. It was like a moment of clarity. Some people call it a moment of clarity. I was on a warp path. I was on a warp path, and I haven't looked back since.
I'm gonna flip a card. What's a realization you had that's associated with that card after that moment of, "Oh, no, I have the controller, what the heck?"
When I became on that war path, I needed to make sure that there wouldn't be anything that could come in to take that controller, Like, I was finally able to I knew how to handle I know what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't want anybody to hijack the system again.
Do you think that it was
So
the realization that you almost like, "Okay, I know that I've been told this, but like, oh no, I'm really in charge of my choices. Like, I'm allowed to make any choice that I want. I don't have to do things just because that's what I feel like other people want of me."
but it required me triggering the heck out of that abandonment wound because it would mean that I could not people please. I had to protect. I had to
Mm.
create boundaries. I had to protect. Yeah, protect in big ways. Yeah.
It's like if there's like this time capsule, right? And it's like certain wounds that we experience when we're too young or too inexperienced to have the tools to heal them, we like put them in this time capsule and we're like, "Okay, nope. I'll deal with this when I'm 30. I'm going to put it away." And then it's almost like at that time it starts to shake and erupt and it's like, "Okay, like it's time for me to be seen." And it's like it gives you this perspective of like, I didn't realize how my entire life I had been making decisions from people pleasing just because this abandonment wound was actually directing my life and I didn't realize it. It's like that. And it almost feels like you've switched roles or you've switched people, but that like really shows you how impactful it can be when your mind believes something. Like your
Yeah.
mind previously believed that you could not, it was not safe to make choices for what you wanted. You had to do it for other people. And it's
Yeah.
like, wait, that realization actually creates this whole other reality. I feel like a different person, but it's actually this like other reality that you
Yes.
open.
And it's all energy. That energy's essentially was what was controlling me.
Mhm.
That was
Right.
potentially the controller.
Like, you hear it, you hear people say it, but until you have that experience, you're like, "Oh, wait, no,
Yeah.
that was actually literally controlling my day to day
Yes.
in ways that you could have never realized until you have
Yeah.
that shift."
Why aren't we doing what's best for all involved? Why? Revenge? Is it hate? Is it malice? Is it what is the purpose?
What do we get out of tearing one another down?
Yes,
And why do we feel like that's the norm? Like, why do we feel like that's the way to get ahead?
and that's okay because you see firsthand how it can affect somebody for their whole life.
Oh, yeah.
So why can't you see that? I mean, that's probably the part of that kinda really gets me a little bit.
Nobody
Yeah.
hasn't been on the receiving end of someone trying to tear them down, and it's like, "Why?" Like,
Yes.
imagine if we put all of this energy into the opposite. Like, you can only shrink so much. Expansion is l unlimited. It's okay, you're the last one standing, but then what, right? It's like,
Mm.
together we expand and keep expanding, and, like, that expansive group versus the one person who wanted to be the last one standing, guess
Yeah.
who's gonna win? Like, there's a whole army of.
Love. That's why they say love wins.
Yep, because it expands instead of contracts or shrinks. In which way did you see yourself differently after realizing you're holding the controller? Like,
I was proud of myself. I never felt like I got that sense of recognition outside of me. No matter how hard I try, I never heard that I am proud of you. But what did I have to do to make them proud of me? Right. So I was proud of me because I did that. I did that.
when you felt like you tried so hard to make others proud of you or see your true intentions and they were not. You had to retreat to a part of you within that you had not been to before. It's like, this is a last resort. I need to go in this room and shut the door. What was on the walls of this hypothetical room?
Fear, fear, a lot of fear.
How would you describe this shadow that fear appeared as?
You can't leave, you can't move, you don't crippling panic. It's awful, and there's nothing happening in my physical reality to trigger this. Nothing. It's just that shadow.
It's like the shadow comes and says, I'm pressing the pause button on you and you're going to keep living, but you're going to live in pause and you can't
Yes.
unpause until I come back. You're like, you're waiting for it to come back and you're in that state of fear because you're waiting for it. And it just leaves you there.
Hanging. Yeah.
Yeah. The wound of the unclaimed soul, coming everything but who you truly are. This wound forms when life is shaped by survival, expectation, or silence until your true self fades beneath it all. You've lived for others, played the roles, rarely asked for what you need. It can leave you haunted by a life that looks full but feels hollow, aching to remember who you were before you learned to forget. In which ways did you finally get up and leave this room, even before you had the confidence in yourself to do so, because you knew that you had to make change? You had to be the one to make a change to see a change.
I had to face the fear. I had to just move into it. Panic attack and all. We just had to go. There's a saying that says, I think everything that you want is on the other side of fear.
So when you got up and pushed the fear out of the way, the monster was no longer under the bed. The monster was in your face here.
Yes.
How did you trust yourself to keep going forward and not retreat back into the room?
The feeling, I could not deal with that feeling that's showing up on those cards there. That's grief, anxiety over a long period of time. I couldn't live that way. No matter what happens, at the end of the day, all I have is me. And there has to be more to life than this feeling. And I just wanted to be happy. It wasn't about anything happening externally. It was about what do I need to do to continue to shift the perspective or shift the feelings inside until I feel okay again inside, because I hate the way this feels. So I had to like literally look at things from a different angle, because your thoughts transfer to your emotions and they send a signal to your emotion, and then the emotion you can find some relief. And that was the only way, by changing my perspective on the things that were making me feel so fear induced, seeing it differently.
How did you take authority back over, these are things that I was taught, or these are things that I embodied because of projections? I'm recognizing that I'm the one who needs to take the authority and say, this is for me and this is not for me. So how did you go back and reestablish the belief systems that were going to hold you through this process?
It goes back to the unconditional love and the conditional love, and really examining what that was. And if I was God operating through love, not unconditional love, how would I want to handle the situation? And that's how I broke free. That's how I broke.
That's a really good perspective.
Just move, energy will follow. Happiness is why we're here. It has to be the only thing you're looking for. You have to be focused. And it takes a great deal of darkness to be able to find it. You never miss what is truly for you. Your passion will be the thing. A refiner's fire. Your passion, your flame, your fire, if it's directed properly, anything is possible. You think abandoning yourself for others is the way, but showing yourself that compassion and love and empathy and kindness is actually the better way. Your wounds don't define you. Everything is always happening for you, not to you.
The Queen of Cups, strength, and Wheel of Fortune is how we just ended that. How is that possible? She has not heard the closing. So I'm going to leave you all with this. Thank you all so much for watching. I am going to be making a community page that's going to be free on STAN.STORE just for the podcast. It'll have all the guests' information. It'll have the speeches and stuff. She didn't come to preach. She came to remember, to lay her story bare, not for pity, but for self-empowerment, to show us that healing doesn't always look graceful. Sometimes it looks like surviving when you weren't supposed to. Bethany brought us into the silence where her soul first cracked open. And instead of running from it, she listened. She let the pain speak, and in doing so, she taught us how sacred even the storm can be. She reminded us that rock bottom isn't the end of the road. It's where the truth gets loud, where you learn who you are when everything else is stripped away. She showed us what it means to face the wreckage without flinching, to name what hurt and to still choose love, to speak what was once unspeakable so that others can breathe again. Bethany didn't just share a story, she cracked open a portal, a space where shame lost its grip, where silence made space for truth, and where survival turned into service. If you felt something stir in you, if her words echoed something that you haven't dared to say, let that be the beginning. Let her reckoning make space for your own. Because what she gave us wasn't just her voice, it was permission. I appreciate each and every one of you that tuned in today. I want this to be something that we can all build together and collectively learn, grow, and heal from. I want to make this a stage where the mirrors we hold up for one another brings not only a sense of external community, but also inner peace. The wound of the hollow gaze, appearing present while emotionally gone, finding a way to be present, present enough to be here, present enough to face the shadows. This wound forms when you learn to stay physically present while emotionally checking out. You may smile, nod, or keep up emotions, but inside you're distant or numb. It can leave you feeling invisible even to yourself, unsure how to truly come back to your body and heart. So if Bethany's story taught you one thing, I hope that it teaches you the impact that we all have on one another and how that ripple effect can be so positive or so negative, and how we each need to take that a lot more seriously, the way that we're impacted. Thank you, Bethany, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.